There's not a lot separating companies with their products, their pricing, their delivery. What separates us is that human connection. I still believe in cold calling. Poor cold calling's dead, but genuine human-based cold calling's still very much alive. I often say don't read sales books, try to understand humans. If you understand humans and the way that we act, the way that we think, that will enhance your sales skills. People don't need to like you to buy from you. I've bought a lot of things off people I don't like, but I do trust that they know and understand my problems better than somebody else. Trust is way more important than likability.
Welcome back to another episode of Growth Unlocked. I'm your host, Kieran Krohn. From sleeping on a bathroom floor with just 31 cents to building a global sales revolution based on integrity, today's guest is Ryan Tuckwood, founder and CEO of SWISH Sales Coaching. Get ready to uncover the raw, honest truths behind mastering sales, influence, and the psychology of genuine human connection. Ryan, I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Mate, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to share some revolutionary things by the sounds of it. That's what you promised. So let's see what happens.
Small promise, but I'm sure we can deliver for the audience. Cool. Well, let's kick it off with a bit of context around your background, Ryan. So you went from an engineer in the UK to, like I mentioned, sleeping on a bathroom floor in Australia with just 31 cents to your name. I guess what beliefs from your upbringing helped you transform that moment into the foundation of your success?
I think that's an interesting question. Firstly, it's a great question because I could take it two ways. There could be positive beliefs and then negative beliefs that have helped me. And I think if I focus initially on the negative beliefs, maybe that's not the right word, but just take the principle behind it. Like I don't come from wealth, far from it. Like my dad worked in a factory, my mum was in administration, and then she was a cleaner. So there was no beliefs around me. There was no knowledge or exposure to business, entrepreneurship, or sales. The only thing I ever heard about sales is that salespeople were sleazy scumbags, just trying to rip people off, calling late at night, that one landline that you've got downstairs that everybody picks up. So I had all these beliefs around sales unconsciously. I wasn't aware of this, that it was a bad thing. And the reason I share that first is that probably stopped me even wanting to go anywhere close to becoming a salesperson or indeed a business owner later on in life. So the positive beliefs, though, that shaped me were ones of hard work and just a genuine desire to do more for people, whatever it may be. Like I always remember my mum saying, always give more than people expect to get. And she was talking about cleaning a college. She used to clean there. She was a caretaker at a college. She had some cleaners that would work with her. She was kind of the senior. And I actually started working for her. I was a cleaner for her back when I was like 15, 16, maybe even younger. And she'd always say, always give more than people expect you to give, or do more than people expect you to do. And I think that's kind of seen me all the way through to where we are today. Even when we do our events, we have specific meetings leading up to events, leading up to any sort of training we deliver. And we go, how can we give people more than they expect to get? Not just give them more, but what do they expect and how can we go above and beyond? And that's a strategy within our business. So I think that's a great belief that my mum probably doesn't even know she instilled in me.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's that sort of delivering, like you said, above and beyond people's expectations that gives them that almost like wow moment, or whether it's just a pleasant surprise, right? And I think that's a philosophy that's really interesting. And it just goes to show like how important, how you're raised and the values that your parents instill in you from a young age kind of go through with you into the rest of your life, right?
It really does. And I think a lot of it is unconscious. Like you don't know that it's going in, but we model what we see. I went to an event last week here on the Gold Coast and I saw a guy called Will Guidera. If you know him, he's the founder of, I think it's called 11 Madison Park, which is the #1 restaurant on the planet. And he wrote a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And he spoke about most companies give reasonable service, and he wanted to give unreasonable service above and beyond. And he said one thing that really stuck with me, and it was that it only takes a moment to make a moment. It only takes a moment to make a moment. And that doesn't need to cost you a cent. It could be the smell when somebody works into your reception. It could be what's playing on the TV when people walk into reception. The fact that you offer them a hot or a cold drink instead of saying, do I want to get you a drink? These are all tiny 1%ers that give me a feeling of these guys actually care. And the core of that, you got to actually care. So it only takes a moment to make a moment.
I love it. It's a nice little one I'll definitely take away from this. So, Ryan, one thing I thought was really interesting is SWISH stands for selling with integrity, selling honestly. Why do you believe that traditional sales techniques often lose sight of these values, and how does prioritizing honesty impact sales results over the long term?
I think firstly, we shouldn't have to be called selling with integrity, selling honestly. That should just go without saying, but unfortunately it doesn't, because a lot of previous salespeople have kind of tarred us all with the same brush. And a lot of it's merited. There are still lots of people out there, all they care about is actually making a commission. My belief is that human beings are very sophisticated. We are living in 2025 now. We're living in the age of AI. I can find out anything I want about you in about 3 seconds on ChatGPT now, not even Google. So I think there's not a lot separating companies with their products, their pricing, their delivery. Like, we're all about on par. What separates us is that human connection. And I think with the advent of AI, I think we're craving it even more. We're talking to our clients all the time. We're talking to prospective clients. We're going around the country and beyond doing events. I speak on stages all around the world. People seem to be craving that human interaction. And I think just the human aspect of the interaction is really important to understand, because that's not just an in-person event or a meeting. That's in the sales process. I want to know that I'm dealing with somebody that actually understands my problems by virtue of the questions they're asking. Why I think it gets overlooked is just pressure. I blame sales managers, I blame business owners, I blame shareholders. And I'm a business owner of nearly 11 years. I've got pressure, I've got overheads, I've got 2 kids, I've gone through a divorce, I'm a single dad at the best of times. I understand pressure to make sales, but when you put that unconsciously on your team, that comes across as commission breath to the end user. So I don't blame the salespeople per se. I think what happens is some salespeople then start to see a level of result from doing that, and it just becomes part of what they do. So often when we get engaged, when a company says, hey, will you train our sales team? My first question is always, who trained them? And they'll go, oh, well, I did. And I go, okay, well, I'll train you and I'll rehabilitate them, because you've already instilled a lot of poor beliefs into them, unfortunately. And they don't always like that, but that's the truth. It's like, you don't train the dog, you train the owner. And I think it's just a pressure to make money and chase commissions. And if we disconnect from that, the beautiful irony is we actually make more money, make more commissions, but the customers come on in a better state of mind and they get better results because of it.
Yeah, it's a really complex situation when I guess you think about it, right? Like, particularly in the landscape that's evolved over the last, let's call it, sort of 5 to 10 years with, like equity, like VC money, PEs pumping a lot of cash into companies that are private, potentially looking to get acquired or to IPO in the future. Investors do, like you said, kind of put this pressure on hitting numbers, seeing results, and fast, right? Because they want to get a return for their investors. How have you seen that? I mean, obviously, like, changing that mentality within a leadership team can be difficult, depending on, like, every company has different circumstances behind it.
Yeah.
Getting leadership to think about things differently fundamentally in terms of their beliefs around how they interact with customers, but getting that, I guess, that balancing act right in terms of still achieving results and numbers, but doing the right thing by the customer. That's quite a complex thing to navigate, isn't it?
It's change management. It's a journey that you've kind of got to go on. And I believe in almost the three P's of change, right? So firstly, I need to see something is probable, right? So I need to know, right, okay, is there a probability that we could change? Because they've got to believe that it's possible in a way before they believe it's possible for them. So then I go, so it's probable. Yeah, okay, I guess some companies could change. Maybe not us, because our industry is different. Everybody says this to us. Our industry is different. Our sales process is so unique. And I'm like, do you speak to humans? They're like, yeah, but it's very different. You wouldn't understand, Ryan. We've worked in every industry, every sector, all the way up to government. And it's just about human connection. So firstly, they need to see something as probable. So it's been done somewhere else. then they need to see the proof, the evidence that it's possible for them. So I think we're in a very fortunate position now, nearly 11 years in, 21,500 businesses, individuals coached in every industry and sector, that we have the proof, which is the conduit for them believing that it's possible for them in their day-to-day as well. And then you just need a pilot. I just need somebody to give me one person. When we started in 2014, that's how we started. We were training job seekers that had no sales experience. We train them for free of charge for 2 days. We then put them into an organization, and then we give them ongoing support with our virtual training for 10 weeks. And our aim was to get them to be the number one performer in 10 weeks at that company. And we had a 96% success rate of placing people into work and doing that. And what that meant was the business would then come to us and go, okay, now can you train the rest of our team? So because most companies wouldn't give us the pilot, we'd give them the pilot free of charge. And we'd go, right, here's a 17-year-old Kieran. He's never sold before in his life. Let us train him. We're not going to charge you. There's no finder's fees, no placement fees. That's not our recruitment model. We're just going to prove to you that our methodology works. And now we've done that for so long, we're in a fortunate position where we have all of that evidence,
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it goes to show, I mean, like if you're putting your money where your mouth is and then you've got all that social proof behind it, it's pretty hard for businesses to argue that, you guys know what you're doing.
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm an engineer by trade. I was an engineer for 8 years. So I'm very evidence and data driven. I did a post about 20 minutes ago, actually, about data dictating operations. But it was interesting when Andrew Banks, one of the Shark Tank investors, came on board. His background, as many might know, is recruitment. He created the first $1 billion recruitment agency in Australia, Morgan and Banks. And he came on board and he saw our model. He saw we had all the evidence, and he instantly said, stop doing recruitment now. Right? It's the least monetized, most time consuming part of your business. You have all of the evidence, just now focus on training. And that's what we did. And it was a great shift.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, maybe it's a good pathway to take this conversation from here, because you mentioned Shark Tank before. Obviously, you secured investment from a pretty high profile individual. I guess what did going through that pitching process to some pretty seasoned investors teach you about things like preparation and just managing high stakes situations?
Well, I believe prep is the foundation for everything, as any good coach should do. We have what we call our 10-step negotiation ladder, which is 10 steps to creating clients for life, not just to a sale, but to create clients for life. And stage one is preparation. So firstly, part of our prep, part of my business partner's prep was to apply to Shark Tank without telling me, because he knew that I wouldn't want to go on, and I didn't want to go on. Back then in late 2017, before we filmed in March 2018, I didn't like the camera. I didn't do this. I didn't go on social media. I definitely wasn't speaking on stages. I'm a recovering introvert in that regard. So Jack just applied without telling me. So his prep was to know who he works with, to know his audience, right? Which is there's a message within that. So first I heard about it. We'd already been accepted to go on. And then what we did, we researched, who do we want? Like, what's the perfect client investor for us with where we want to go with this organization. So we wanted Steve Baxter. Steve Baxter is a tech guru, sold his first business for nearly $400 million to TPG. Phenomenal businessman, based in Brisbane, US market as well, which is what we wanted to get into. We were like, he's the man. So we started to pre-stalk him. We went to every event from November through to March. We'd go to breakfast, luncheons, Q&As, and every time we got to one of the events, at the end of it, they usually have a Q&A, and we just put our hand up and ask questions. And we go, Steve, I know you've got twin daughters. I'm thinking about growing a family myself. Any advice for a young dad starting out in fatherhood when trying to run a startup business at the same time? He'd go, great question. Next week, we go to another luncheon. Hey, Steve, saw you last week up in Brisbane. You were great. Thinking about breaking into the US market. Any advice for any challenges we'll see in the US? So the reason I share that is by the time we got into the tank, Steve said, I know you guys. He didn't know where he knew us from, but he recognized us, and it gave us a level of familiarity and ultimately unconscious trust with all the other sharks. And it gave us, I believe, a real good foundation to become the first company ever in the show to get 3 investors, because we got Steve, Andrew, and Glenn. So like, know your audience, know their challenges, get in front of them beforehand so there's a level of familiarity. And then when you get there, make sure you know how to deliver your pitch, because we only got 90 seconds. And we now teach that professionally.
Yeah, I love the ingenuity and the level of detail that you guys went into and the effort that you applied to actually, go out there, like spend time at the luncheons, put your hand up, ask the questions, and that kind of level of preparation and understanding your audience is pretty incredible. And going back to sort of the point you made towards the start of the conversation around, like, it's never been easier to do research into people. Like, obviously,
So
like what you can get available online, right? You can make inferences, but I think kind of taking it to that next level is what sort of separates like the good from the great. Generally, is like that little bit extra effort to find something that's unique about that individual.
it's the work before the work, right? Don't be lazy. We're jumping into meetings, we're jumping on calls without even taking time to see if we've got any mutual connections on LinkedIn. And that's not false rapport. That's respecting the other person that you're about to have a meeting with. Another great example, we tended a few years ago now, probably about 4.5 years ago, to become the preferred training supplier for Queensland Government, Queensland Health, and Queensland Education. So training essentially doctors, nurses, paramedics, security, government officials, and the 104,000 Queensland teachers. And by no right should we have won this tender. We were the youngest company by age and by time in operation. But what I did was build a really, really good relationship with Leslie, the procurement officer. And everyone says, you can't, they don't have any influence. I don't know if she did have influence or not. I know she was in hospital, and I sent her a card and I said, I hope you're well, when she was in hospital. She had a back operation. My belief is at some stage, maybe, and I have no evidence of this, maybe they had too many businesses tendering for this tender. And did they say, hey, Leslie, you've got 110 companies that you're profiling right now. Do any stand out? Because we haven't got time to go through all of these. And she might have gone, there's a guy called Ryan on the Gold Coast. He's quite nice. They called SWISH. And they go, all right, put them through. I don't know. It might have happened, but I gave myself a chance. And then an extension to that, before we won it, we did win it. In lieu of winning it, I then started connecting with all school principals and teachers in Queensland, because I don't want to just reach out to a new contact a week later and go, hey, we now can train your teachers. I want them to see my content for 6, 8, 9, 10 months so that the law of familiarity kicks in. Again, I didn't know we were going to win that, but I gave myself a chance. Prep.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's awesome. And I think, like, in the sort of technology-driven age that we live in now, like, one of the things that we've been doing is how do we try to take as much of that heavy lifting off the human as possible? Because so much of this can be scraped through, websites, through social, through news, etc. And, this is something that is really important, but I think, like, the reality is, like, salespeople either neglect or they don't kind of make the time to do. They might be running back-to-back meetings, so they don't kind of get around to it. And, that was one of the things when I was a sales manager at HubSpot. I used to make really clear to the account execs that I was working with is, like, you need to put in the time to do the research. But now that you have, basically the ability to scrape information, put that into the CRM on the contact and the company level, means that most of that's already done. And this is something that I think we're going to see more commonly with organizations is, like, how do we kind of free the human up to focus on having the conversation, being meaningful, being relevant, but take some of those things off their plate so, they can focus on the important things.
We're so lucky. When I arrived here in 2010, I had no sales background. And then I found myself in a call center. And my job was to make 300 outbound cold calls every single day. The data initially I had on the piece of paper, so I get 100 sheets in the morning, 100 at lunch, and 100 in the afternoon. And I had to work through those 300 every day. And if I didn't hit the 300, I wouldn't get my retainer for the week. And on the piece of paper, it just said, Kieran, managing director, company name, location. That's it. That's all I had on that piece of paper. my old boss recognized very quickly if it said director, CEO, chief executive, whatever, I freaked out. I just couldn't talk to you. So in the end, my piece of paper just said Kieran and then a mobile number, and that was it. They were my leads. But I didn't have a computer. I didn't have an email. I didn't have a CRM. My info was on that piece of paper, and I wrote it and I put it into a what do you call it? A tray. And then the receptionist would come around every hour and take everybody's leads that they generated, and then they'd go through to the closers in the boiler room. And that was how I worked. So we're in such a fortunate age right now where I genuinely can scrape as much as I want as quickly as I can, but still people are working inefficiently. And then they're not doing the work before the work. And I think there's two parts. You said so that they can then have those conversations, be the human, but also to build brand over here. Like how sold can I get you on me before you even speak to me? Like we know that human beings make decisions based on three verticals. We call it the 300% rule of value. So MCP, myself, company, product. So they need to be 100% sold on you, 100% sold on the company, 100% on the product or service that you have to offer. So I want you to at least have a humanized perception or view of me before we even jump on the call. And that could be just by sending out a short, quick video beforehand. It could just be having your picture in your email signature if you're so inclined. Having your socials open. As much as some people hate it, I respect it. But if you are a sales rep selling the same as me, and you're approaching somebody cold and they try to look and find something on you online and there's nothing, and then they go and find everything that I've got out there, I know I've got a better chance of winning this business. So you got to make that choice, and we can hate the technology or we can embrace the technology. And I've learned in recent years to embrace it.
Well, it looks like you've definitely done a great job of building the brands, because I mean, just having a look at what's behind you and everything that I've seen on social and your website, like, you know, you can see you've made a really concerted effort to focus on building the brand of Swish.
It's become, and I think it's so cliche, but it has become a movement. Like we've only just started getting merch created because people keep asking us for merch. I'm like, really, you want a cap with Swish on it? They're like, yeah. Like I still find it a bit strange. But it's nice because people feel part of a community, and we know that communities move faster than people that are alone. So it's powerful. And if you look at the biggest brands on the planet, they've been able to achieve just that.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that I really love is how you seem to have mastered the psychology of sales and influence by studying human behavior really intensely. What surprising insight did you uncover about human decision making that fundamentally changed your approach?
Before I give my answer, I think what's important to note is it's a question I get asked a lot: is what is the best sales book to read? And I often say don't read sales books. Just really truly try to understand humans. And I do believe if you understand humans and the way that we act, the way that we think, the emotions that we go through in certain situations, that will enhance your sales skills for sure. So one of the interesting things that came up for me was that people don't need to like you to buy from you. They don't. I actually don't need to like you. I've bought a lot of things off people I don't like, but I do trust that they know and understand my problems better than somebody else. And I think this notion of you got to be likable, you actually don't. I mean, there's got to be a level of comfort in conversation for me to open up to you in the first place, but trust is way more important than likability. And I think this is what stifles a lot of really nice people, but it's also been a real superpower for our organization because we don't attract the Jordan Belfort wannabes. We don't really attract those people that just want to make loads of commissions and be a high ticket closer, which I hate that terminology. We attract really good humans that maybe they're not even selling a product directly. Maybe they're in retentions, they're in customer support, they're in people and culture, and they just want to learn how to communicate better with other people around them in their life. That means that they're a little bit stuck in the likability factor because they're not naturally born salespeople. So when we can show them, hey, you can be liked, yes, but I'm going to show you how to build trust, because that's more powerful to get to inspire people to do things, not influence or convince or manipulate, but to inspire people to do things. So yeah, that likability versus trust is a big thing that I've recognized.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, like, I mean, the perception of salespeople, like you were saying before, even marketers, like, I think that are probably like one of the least trusted professions in the world, right? Uh,
We're up there.
and this is why people are now going to their peers and these communities, like you spoke about before. A lot of these conversations are happening, in Slack communities and WhatsApp groups. Like, people are generally going to try to back channel or like get recommendations, as opposed to just sort of having a look at the reviews on Google or a website or whatever that might be. So I think that's something that we're seeing more and more, is that you can definitely put a lot of work into building your brand, and you can use case studies and testimonials, but at the end of the day, I think like people are going to go to their peers and others in their network for those recommendations when it comes to that trust element, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if somebody's prepared to give a referral or a recommendation, they put their own reputation on the line. So you can't just be good. Like, you have to be exceptional. You have to do more than they expect you to do and give more than they expect you to give, for them to want to sing your praises. We've got our tour that I mentioned that's coming up in a couple on next week. Next week we start in Perth. There's like clients that we've got right now that are just sharing, and we don't ask them to, but it's a community, it's a movement, and they want to share it, and that wouldn't happen if we weren't looking after them for 3 4 5 years, and that is planned. We strategically decide how we're going to create a great experience for these guys, not just when they first come on board, but in 5 10 15 years, so they never want to leave, because it will be them that become our salesperson for us. Like, we do outreach, we do cold calling. I still believe in cold calling. We've put hundreds of people at this future event through cold calling. We did it at our conference in October as well. Poor cold calling's dead, but genuine human based cold calling still very much alive. But nothing stronger than a referral when they want to do it and you didn't even have to ask for it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's this debate, right, that you see on LinkedIn and all around, cold calling's dead. No, it's still alive. And I think like more than ever, it's just getting back to our point before. It's just that human to human connection that really matters, right?
Yeah, it is. And this is, I don't know whether it's an ego thing, but I've done 330,000 cold calls in my time, right? I know, you learn a thing or two about not getting punched in the face when you go through that. I was bottom of the board for 3 months straight. I threw the towel in, I was done. And it was only one fortuitous conversation with my old boss, Jack, that kept me in the game. Like, he said, I'm not letting you quit because you haven't even tried. And he challenged me to fanatically obsess over the art and craft of sales for 2 months. And he said, if you don't go from 21st to 20th, just one place, I'll pay for you to fly wherever you want in the world, but leave here knowing you gave this a really good go. And people will tell you that cold calling is dead when they've never given it a good go. Or they've given it a go, but they've never been professionally trained. So for me, what I did with this particular event that we've got coming up, I took 4 people from our team, and I'm like, I want you calling Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney. And I want to be in that room, and I want 50% of this room to be here because of cold calling. I want to prove to everybody that this. So we'll find out next week how it went.
It's a pretty lofty goal. I'm sure you'll hit it though.
Yeah, I'm confident. We always do, but we haven't done a tour like this since 2019, ironically. So it's the first time I've had again to prove it.
Nice. So kind of getting back to that concept of like human to human selling, we touched on, a world that's now dominated by AI and automation. It's only going to continue to go more and more that way. How have you seen companies integrating technology in a human way?
Integrating it in a human way. I don't know if I have just yet. To be honest, I was over in the States last April, and I did a 2-day program over there, with a speaker coach. And during that trip, they were playing some recordings of AI bots and human agents, and we had to guess which one was which. You couldn't tell. Right? You really could not tell which was which. And they've since changed the regulations now that if you are an AI bot, that doesn't make sense. If there is an AI bot, then they need to tell the person they're calling immediately at the start of the call that this is an AI bot. So what I'm seeing over here, because there seems to be a little bit more resistance to it, is the decision to outbound call with AI bots initially, but instantly give that person the choice. Would they like to continue this conversation or pass it over to a human advisor? So it's where we're actually putting the control back in the hands of the consumer, which I think is really important. For us, I think it's more around automation and through systems. We use Fathom internally for meetings, where it pulls out all the information from the Zoom call. It's absolutely brilliant. Like it can hear more than you can hear. And it pulls all that information, automatically creates an email for me, and it says, hey, Kieran, thanks for this. These are the bullet points, blah, blah, blah. It probably takes our 25-minute admin down to about 3 minutes at the end of a call. That's huge because, like you said, you can then get back into the next conversation or strategy for how you're going to approach the next call, or start building that personal brand. So at the minute, I haven't seen it really integrated with too well to keep it human. I can't say too much at the minute, but I'm building something external with somebody else to do just that, by where we're actually going to take the scenario, the sales conversation, and use AI to transcribe and also make sure that we don't lose the human touch throughout. I can't really say too much more about that, but yeah, hopefully we'll be the first that will bring it to life.
Sounds pretty exciting. I mean, yeah, well, I guess with your pedigree and your experience, when you can kind of, I guess a lot of it is around like, how do you take out, extract the IP, right, and put that into technology that other people can leverage?
Yeah, I'm just learning about all of that stuff. It's happening in the US. There's coaches out there that are already doing this, creating what they call a data lake of your IP. And then they go, right, to access all of that, here's an app. You can have Ryan as a 24/7, 365 coach. That's a given. That's going to happen. Everybody will be doing that. We want to take that and take it to 2 or 3 other levels.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Something that I have noticed getting really good feedback from our customers is whenever I'm building a proposal, is basically like taking out as much context, like you were saying, from these transcripts, pulling in quotes from the customer, and really kind of going into a lot of detail and using their language and their voice when you're actually crafting the messaging. And like, the consistent feedback is, you know us so well, you understand our situation, you get the problem, and it's just like that's where I see technology being really powerful, right? Is like making sure that the people feel heard and understood.
So this is a really, really good point, right? So my belief is that just like any sales process, any sales interaction, most people these days have seen The Wolf of Wall Street and they know what you're doing, right? So when we speak their language so well, which is, I talk about this all the time, we have to learn to speak prospect better than they can speak prospect. We need to articulate their problems better than they can speak their own problems. And AI is going to be phenomenal for this. Even listening on calls, listening to their personality type, their buying behaviors, their motivational drivers. And I believe the way we hybrid the two is to not try to do it as an underhand, I actually understand you, but by saying, hey, Kieran, just so you know, we are using an AI tool to really listen to every single word that you're saying so I don't miss anything, so that when I do tailor a solution, it is fully tailored to you and speaks your language. So when you get this come through to you, this is going to feel that this has been made specifically for you. That's because it has. So like being that upfront with it, because I think the other way is like, oh, did they even write that? Or is that written by AI? And then you actually create a disconnect because they are unsure. So I think the full transparency of what we're doing and why we're doing it, it's for your benefit, this technology. I think that's how we can hybrid the two.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. It's like as soon as people get a sniff that an email has been written by AI, instantly goes in the trash. You're never going to hear from that person again.
How many like LinkedIn posts do you believe these days? So, all of a sudden you've got these people who've been following for 10 years and they're doing these real philosophical posts. And I'm like, I know you don't talk like that. Like I go for a beer with you. You don't talk like that. Who is that? And then you see one of those dashes and you're like, right, done. But then what it does is discredit everything else they've ever done or they will do in the future. And you can lose your reputation in a second. And so, yes, we can use the technology, but we need to make sure that we stay authentic to who we are and keep our own personality within it as well. And if I remember first time I used Fathom. Do you use Fathom? You know what it is?
I've used it before, yeah.
Yeah, and it usually has a one line little joke at the end as well. So it will do. There was an electrician, and it's like, I can't wait to spark your sales into life. And I'm like, I would never say that. Like, do you know what I mean? So I could have just, well, I didn't even have to copy and paste it. It just automatically goes into your email. But if I'd have left that in, the person knew me and be like, that's a bit cheesy. That doesn't sound right. So I think there's some teaching that we can do for the AI. So the step that we would then go is for it to learn who you are as a person, not just learn your sales process, but learn the rep within the sales process so that it becomes custom to them, which
Yeah,
you can do, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Ryan, I think when I was doing some research, you recently spent 5 days with Sir Richard Branson on Necker Island. Is that right?
I did. That's why I was in the States last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'd love to know more about that. But I mean, something that comes to mind is, I guess, sort of what unexpected lessons or perspectives did you gain from meeting him and having conversations with him?
Um, Firstly, Richard is effortlessly inspiring. And when I mean effortlessly, he just walks around with no t-shirt on, just playing tennis most of the day, or doing ice baths and doing these bike rides, blah blah blah. Um, that's the first thing. I mean, he's changed my whole trajectory of life and business. There was one conversation I had with him where I actually got to get in a buggy with him, and he dropped me back to my villa. And as I got out, he turned to me and he said, Ryan, don't forget to be playful. Don't forget to be playful. And in that moment, in my head, I walked back to the villa and I was like, yeah, no worries. And I'm like, this guy thinks I'm uptight. This guy, somehow he's read me in a 6-minute drive, and he's gone, you're uptight. Whether he saw me just making notes at the breakfast table and observing everybody, and that's kind of the way I work. I don't know, but it really stuck with me that this guy somehow has been able to create the absolute empire that he has. And you could track this all the way back. He's not just having fun now. He's made his billions. He had fun all the way along. And he strategically builds out moments of playfulness into his day-to-day life. The whole island is designed for, there was 138 staff, I think, for 40 of us on the island. From water sports to bar staff to DJs, like it's designed to be playful and to let your hair down. And I think I'd lost sight of that in certain aspects of business. So that was a big lesson from him. But I also learned a lot from everybody else on the island. The process to get on there was relatively tough. It was 8 months of interviews, and I was the only one from Australia. And there's almost, in that environment, if you were there was almost an assumed level of success. And what I mean by that was, not one person ever asked me for a vanity metric. Nobody asked me what we turnover was, how big is your team, like none of that stuff, which meant that we got deeper connections at an accelerated rate, because we weren't talking about surface level crap. We were actually talking about us as humans and connecting. And it was, a really, really phenomenal experience.
Well, yeah, I can imagine that those types of conversations would have been pretty meaningful, right? And I guess probably a lot of just shared sort of life lessons and experiences between all those people that were there at that point in time.
So Richard's there, of course, but you could go off and grab any one of them. 22 of them were post-exit in their business. And one guy sold out for 1.1 billion US dollars. Like there was wisdom and knowledge and heartbreak and trauma and sacrifices everywhere. So many lessons. There was another thing that Richard said, which if I was to look back on our journey right now and how we've remodeled over the last year since this meeting, and I was going to start this whole business from scratch, it would be based on this lesson. Figure out who you really want to work with as quickly as possible. Like genuinely. And I'm not just talking about an industry or a sector. I'm talking about the people behind it and the people that you'll be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And you're in marketing, I guess, right? You understand personas and getting the right leads in the door. And there's another guy called Phil M. Jones, who's a great speaker. He was over here last few days, and I went for lunch with him, did a podcast with him. And he said, imagine this. Imagine if you're going to organize a dinner party and you could only invite 10 people to that dinner party. What's the first thing you do, right? You write a guest list. Who goes on that guest list? You don't put people on there that you don't want to be there. You don't put people on there that you wouldn't want to have a beer with or sit and have dinner with and have a laugh with. Get very, very clear on who that is, because since we've done that in April last year, not only have I given myself 26 hours a week back in the business because I'm now not doing the thing that wasn't serving clients, but it's more enjoyable for every single one of my team members, and the business has gone like that since. So get really, really clear on who you want to work with, and then the results will show as well.
That's a really great point, and something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. You know, it really is the sum of the people around you, right, that contributes to success, and having the right people in the right seat. I mean, we could probably go in a bunch of other directions in terms of how you find the right people and how you keep them in the business. But yeah, I think that point that you've raised is so true, and you want to make sure that everyone's kind of aligned and moving in the same direction, right? Like all kind of vectors pointing in one direction.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I used to think that was quite cliche, that like you become the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with, until I found the right 5 people. And then I'm like, okay, I get it now. These guys are lifting me up. They're not unconsciously bringing me down by what they would class as banter, which is actually just kind of abusing me a little bit. Internally with the team, I've had 70 odd staff in the last 10 or 11 years. I've got a core team now of what I genuinely believe to be A players, but I'm also very aware that what got us here won't get us there. And I remember Andrew Banks saying in 2021, midst of COVID, I guess, I remember sitting in our boardroom, and he came in to just have a bit of a talk in the January to my team. And he said, they all left, and he goes, Ryan, I know where you're at. And I was like, where are we at? I don't know where we're at. He goes, you need to shed some skin. You need to flip about 75% of this team because they're not on the bus. And I'm like, what are you on about? They're great. They're amazing people. He's no, I'm not denying they're not great people, but they're not going to get you to the next level. They were great to get you to here, but they're not going to get you to there. And even for me as the CEO, I'm very aware that I'm not the CEO that's going to take us to $100 million a year. Like, I've never done that before. So at some stage I need to step off, and I'll sit in my coaching space. I'm still on the train, but I'm not the driver of the train. So, and I think that's really important to recognize, because in business, depending on where you're at, sometimes we get emotionally stuck with a team that has got us as far as we can go. And it's up to us to be the visionary to go, hold on a second, I think we've got another level here. This is where I want to go. I'd love you guys to be on the bus with me. But to do that, we've got to dial things up a little bit. And some people would deselect themselves through that process. Most of them did when I did that in 2021.
Yeah, it must have been quite challenging to go through that process, right? But I guess those are some of the tough decisions you have to make in business.
Yeah, it is. And it's arguably one of the hardest things I've had to get used to doing in business. Like I never want to let anybody go. But unfortunately, if I don't let people go, they're unconsciously letting me go, because my business isn't going to reach its potential or get anywhere close to reaching its potential. We can't help more people. And then I start to resent it after a while. I'm probably the least paid employee of my own business, working more hours than anybody else. I'm like, well, that's not why I started a business. I started a business because I wanted freedom, and I wanted to do something that I really enjoy doing that can actually have great impact on people. And if you lose all of those things, then it does become a bit like, what's the point? I'm not gonna have a tough conversation with you because I don't want to upset you, but then I'm upsetting myself. So it starts with having a tough conversation with yourself and going, hold on, what do I really want? If I could build my perfect business right now from scratch, which is basically when I flew back from Necker Island last year, I spent 24 hours on the plane just remodeling the whole company. The team come back to my team and they're like, what? And luckily every single one of this team continued on that journey. No one's left. They want to go to the next level, and we have done. So yeah, it's a ever evolving landscape, which is still challenging.
Absolutely. Well, kudos to you, Ryan, for building what you've done. It's so impressive to see sort of where you started and how you've taken the business to where it is today. If people want to connect with you, follow along on your journey, learn more about Swish, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm pretty social, as mentioned. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So I think it's at Ryan Tuckwood Official, or just Ryan Tuckwood. And then the website is swishsalescoaching.com.
Ryan, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Unlocked Beyond Scale. If you enjoyed the show, it would really be appreciated if you can leave a 5-star review wherever you consume your podcasts. And while you're there, why not subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes? If you'd like to learn about how to drive profitable scale in your business, gain clarity on your direction, and improve your business valuation, click the link in the show notes to connect with Kieran.